guys, it's Angelo, and as we're getting more and more exciting news about Shadowlands, today we're having a look at the first implemented Discipline Priest Legendaries on the World of Warcraft Shadowlands Alpha. Recently, we had discovered a first Discipline Priest Legendary which was published in last week's Alpha build, and more have been added this week, giving us quite a bit to cover. Now keep in mind that everything you are about to see is still in the Alpha, meaning it is subject to change in some way, some shape, or some form. Now, if you're new to the channel and you want to stay updated, of course, welcome, and feel free to subscribe, as I've seen a lot of you recently subscribing, which is great, so thank you so much for that. Now, if you want to join the discussion with everything priest related, be sure to join our Discord server with the link in the description box below. Good. Now that being said, without any further ado, let's go right ahead and have a look. Okay, so again, this video will focus on Discipline Priest Legendaries and any legendary item that the Discipline Priest can use only. I've covered Shadow Priest Legendaries previously, and if you want to check those out, then be sure to click the link popping up on your screen now. The Holy Priest will be posted next, so be sure to stay up to date there as well. Now, this also means that legendaries which could possibly be ones for all specs will also be discussed in this video, but out of those, we only have two. Firstly, we have Cauterizing Shadows, which heals 5 allies for 6% of their maximum health whenever Shadow Word Pain expires on a target. This is also an anima power for all priest specs available in Torghast called Shaden Fluorite. The next general legendary we see in this build is called Restored Faith. Leap of Faith now instead causes you to leap to your target and has 2 charges. This legendary is clearly inspired by a former glyph, the Glyph of Restored Faith, which of course is not available anymore in-game. Now, both of these legendaries are of course very utility based, and Cauterizing Shadow especially gives more of the flair of a raid or big group supporting legendary, and for the Disc Priest could possibly be a viable option. Since it won't really mess up our rotation as Disc, we can utilize this legendary thoroughly, and I'll be sure to test this legendary extensively for you. Restored Faith seems to be a very cool legendary to help us with mobility, but in all fairness, it's very doubtful at this point that we will ever really use it, unless a boss mechanic or perhaps an entire encounter really dictates us to make use of it, or if we're able to equip multiple legendaries at once, which will surely be the case later on when the expansion progresses. It also needs to be said here that 2 legendary items out of this general legendary list are missing in this build according to the data mine information, and I'll be sure to cover those once we have more information at hand. Okay, now let's take a look at the spec specific legendaries for the disc. First, we have the new version of the Penitent one, a legendary which I had discussed in my previous first look at legendaries last week. Power Word Radiance now has a 50% chance to cause your next penance to fire 3 extra bolts. Definitely a competitive legendary as it seems, and a formidable buff in some way to its former iteration in theory, however it is now proc dependent, but in return fires 3 extra bolts instead of channeling an extra second. This is certainly better for the early stages of Shadowlands, but whether or not this legendary will truly be competitive, that remains to be seen. Next, we have Crystalline Reflection. Power Word Shield instantly heals the target for 30% of your spell power and reflects 30% of the damage absorbed. This was formerly a priest glyph and is now also an anima power in Torghast called Reflective Shield. This legendary will certainly be strong, as it not only gives Power Word Shield a strong direct healing aspect, but it also gives us some more damage to play around with, as 30% of the absorbed damage is reflected, which is pretty awesome. Up next is Kiss of Death. Kiss of Death reduces Shadow Word Death's cooldown by 8 seconds and causes its damage to trigger Atonement. This is hands down a very strong legendary and is certainly a competitor for our top spot. I've said this in my Disc Priest Issues video, but having means to allow Power Word Death to trigger Atonement would be absolutely huge, so this legendary certainly looks strong and promising. Whether or not this will be able to give us more throughput than Crystalline Reflection for example, will be very interesting to see, but both of these legendaries will look incredibly promising nonetheless. Finally, we have Clarity of Mind. During Rapture, Power Word Shield costs 20% less mana and applies 6-second longer atonements. This legendary is inspired by the tier 19 Discipline Priest 4-piece bonus, which also extended the atonement duration from Rapture Shields by 6 seconds. Now, this is obviously a cooldown centered legendary and definitely more raid oriented. This means that it may not be as great for overall throughput as other legendaries in this list, but depending on the situation can still prove to be very strong. Great, so all in all, the Discipline Priest seems to be coming into Shadowlands with some pretty interesting legendaries. When comparing it to the Shadow Priest, these legendaries certainly seem more gameplay enhancing in different ways, and that is a very good thing, because that is exactly what I personally think a legendary item should be doing. Somehow altering or enhancing your gameplay in one way or another. Especially with Kiss of Death and Crystalline Reflection, this is the case, as both give way more strength to a certain ability, granting you higher benefits of prioritizing them or using them in different ways to achieve different outcomes. All in all, I'm very happy that the disc is getting these legendaries, and I'll be sure to keep you informed on any updates. What do you think? Are you enjoying the ideas behind these legendaries? Be sure to let us all know in the comments below, as I'd be excited to hear what you have to say, and I'm sure many others are as well. Now thank you everyone so much for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video then please give it a like, and if you want to stay updated on the content of this channel then feel free to subscribe. A very special thanks to my supporters over at Patreon, as well as all of you guys over on Discord who are tirelessly helping new and fellow priests out with any question they may have. Now, have a good one my friends, enjoy patch 8.3, get excited for Shadowlands, and I will see you all in the next one.